Hi, I'm Gabrielle Daly, and welcome to another edition of Westside Legacy Stories. And today I'll be interviewing Ted Shore. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Gabriella. It's a great pleasure for me personally to be here. My name is Edward W. Shore Jr. People call me Ted, so I don't get mixed up with my father, because they called him Eddie, so now they call me Ted, which is fine. I've been around West Springfield since 1939, and I went to I started playing hockey in 1946 at the Coliseum, and I've been involved in hockey for a long time. And I got married. I live in West Springfield.
What changes have you seen in the town over the years that you've lived here?
Well, one of the things that I thought about is that the ice on the ponds doesn't freeze as much as it used to when I was little. Whether that's due to global warming or not, I don't know. But that's one of the things that I thought about. The other is that the ethnic population is different now than it was back in the 40s and 50s, which is okay.
Are you happy about all of the sports available to children now?
Yes, very much. Especially, I'm happy with that the girls are able to partake in sports. I watch girls basketball, I watch girls hockey, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's absolutely fantastic.
What do you most miss about the way it used to be, or is it kind of the same? I mean, the changes you said weren't really like.
Back when I first came to Springfield, we were at the Eastern States Coliseum. There was ice in there, and there was hockey games every Saturday night, which I went to, and it was absolutely a great place to watch a hockey game. And we did that up until 1991 when they took the ice out. And I was very sad about that. But, progress.
What was it like when you grew up here?
It was great. Everybody was friends. Everybody got along. And it was just a good place to grow up, I think.
What are some stories you remember about here, from your childhood?
Well, as I say, I went to the hockey games at the Coliseum every Saturday night. I watched my father play up until 1942. And then, what was the question?
What were some great stories you remember about the
okay.
town?
I think mostly the people that I met here from West Springfield were all great people. I mean, great people. Everybody helped each other, and it was just a great place to be.
Are you still in contact with a lot of people you know from the town?
Unfortunately, a lot of the people I knew have passed away. But those that I do know, yes, I'm in touch with them. I talk to them on a reasonably regular basis.
What brought you to the town? Were you born here? I was kind of confused about that.
I was not born here. I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada in 1930, which makes me old, but I don't care. I lived on the farm north of Edmonton, Alberta, for summers from 1930, when I was born, until 1942. And then in the winters, my father played hockey for the Boston Bruins, so we lived in Boston in the winter time. And then in the spring, we'd go back to the farm in Edmonton, which was great. And I went to a one-room schoolhouse just in Edmonton, just in case you'd like to know. And there was 9 grades, 1 teacher. My class was the biggest class, had 3 kids in it. And it was 3 miles from the farm, and I rode my horse. You'll see a picture of my horse. I rode my horse to school and back 3 miles, and they had a couple of stalls for the kids that came by horse, so that they had a place to put the horses while we were in school. And then I'd ride my horse back.
Since there were 9 grades, how did the teacher teach everyone, since everyone was on different pages in education?
You know what? I don't know. You got to remember, I was
Very young.
7, 8, 9 years old then. But we all learned. We all learned. Oh, and there was a couple of grades with no kids in it.
Oh. So, like, there was only, like, 20 kids there? It was very small.
There was less than 20. I think
Wow.
there was probably 15 or 16 kids in the school.
So that's like my English class.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what were your, do you have any siblings?
I do not have any siblings. I'm a spoiled, rotten only kid, my wife says.
What were your parents like?
Well, my father played professional hockey with the Boston Bruins from 1924 to 1939-40 season. And my mother played basketball on a world championship basketball team. She played for 5 years in Edmonton. And my father was playing hockey in Edmonton, and I figured that's how they met. I don't know the story, but that's how they met. So, and I'm the result of that. So, now I got to tell you a couple things about my living in Edmonton. I lived on the farm. My father had a house in Edmonton, and we had my grandfather, my grandmother, my uncle, my aunt lived in the house also. And my grandfather and I would sit on the porch and count the cars going one way and the other way. There was a green in between the northbound lane and the southbound lane. And that's where I learned to count. You know, I'd count and he'd count, and that's where I learned my numbers, which I thought was great. The other thing I remember about that is my grandparents were from Scotland, and you didn't cut the grass on Sunday. You didn't do your toenails on Sunday or fingernails. That was a no-no. And most of the restaurants were closed. There was only a couple that were open in town. All the stores were closed back then. I'm talking about the 30s. And so you had to make do with what you had.
Are you surprised that a lot of places are open on Sundays and it's not really a day that you just relax anymore?
Yes. I'd like to go back to the old where Sunday you go to church, you come home, you rest, you eat dinner, and you rest. And that's it. Take it easy. Have a conversation with your family.
So what brought you to West Side, and what was life here like when you were younger?
Okay, I had, as I say, my father bought the Springfield Indians franchise in the American Hockey League in 1939. So that's when we came here, and that's why I came to this area. He ran the Springfield Indians until 1972. I know people are going to say, well, the Kings are in there. Yes, but we still ran the building. But all through that, I was there. I worked at the building. Somebody said to me one time, well, what did you do? And don't you ask me that question. What did you do? I say, how much time have you got? Because I did everything. I mean, everything. I sold tickets, took tickets, swept the seats, took care of the refrigeration, took care of the ice, was in charge of the ushers and promotion of hockey, ice capades, you know, whatever.
So while all this was going on, were you ever in school? Did you ever go to college? And were you at high school here?
I went to high school at Wilbraham Academy, now Wilbraham Munson Academy. I went there 4 years, played hockey 4 years there. My mother passed away in September 1945. So, and my father had the team in the franchise that he owned here. Of course, the war came along in 1942. So the Army took over the exposition grounds, and they were, it was the quartermaster corps. There was everything in that, on the grounds, I mean, in the buildings. I see pictures of when they were in the Coliseum, and the stuff is piled high, you know, all kinds of quartermaster stuff. And then in 1945, my father figured that he'd be back at the Coliseum. Well, the Army says, no, we're not ready to leave yet. So he had to put the franchise somewhere, so he put it in New Haven for 1 year, and then came back to Springfield.
It says that you joined the Army on your resume, or it said you were a part of it.
I joined the Army on July 13th, 1951, which was when the Korean conflict was going on. And I was in the Army. I was in the Army of the United States for 2 years, not the United States Army. I was in the Army of the United States. I'm very particular about that. But I was in for 2 years. Attained the rank of corporal, big deal, you know. But that's okay. I did good in the Army. The people liked me. I don't know why.
You're a very outgoing guy. I can see why they liked you.
Well, I try to be outgoing. It's I think one of my faults, if it's a fault, is to be outgoing. It doesn't hurt to be nice. It's very easy to be nice. And I try to be that way.
So for your jobs, you said you did maintenance of the Coliseum. Was there anything else you did, like managing money for your dad's franchise?
No. The only thing I didn't do was sign the players' checks. I did everything else. As I said, I sold tickets to everything that was going on at that time in the building. I took care of the refrigeration. I took care of I've swept the seats, resurfaced the ice. You name it, I did it. You know, changed lights up in the girders up there. I was up there too. It's 85 feet from the ice surface to the bottom of the girders. It's a long ways when you look down. And no ropes to hold you.
That's scary.
Yes.
I wouldn't do that. So you mentioned playing for hockey for Wilbraham Academy.
Yes.
Did you play on any other teams?
Yes. In 1949, the Springfield Flyers were formed in the Atlantic Hockey League, and I played 2 years, 49-50, 50-51, with the Springfield Flyers. And that was great. We played in Lynn, in the arena in Providence, North Shore Sports Center, excuse me. We played in Milford, Connecticut, Madison Square Garden. We played You know, that was, we had a doubleheader one day, played Madison Square Garden at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, got on the train, came back, played in Springfield that night. That was good. I got a lot of exercise that day.
That's a lot of hockey.
And then after, because in 1951 I went in the Army. So that took care of my hockey career. Although I did play 1 year at American International College, where I was going after I got out of the Army. I went there and I graduated from there.
What did you major in?
Accounting, I have a Bachelor of Business Administration with a major in accounting.
Besides hockey, did you have any other hobbies?
Yes. I played golf, a lot of golf. And at home I got a lot of trophies. And I did very well at golf. Now, if you'd like to ask me, what was your biggest disappointment in golf? I'll be happy to tell you.
You can tell me.
Okay. The year I was 71, I was in Las Vegas and I shot 72. I was in New Orleans. I shot 72. I came back here and shot 72 in the Springfield area. And my biggest disappointment in golf is that I never shot my age. If one putt had dropped at any one of those 3 courses at that time, when I was 71, instead of 72, I would have shot 71. I shot my age, and I never did that. And that's my biggest disappointment. Other than that, I won a lot of tournaments, had a great time playing all over the country.
So you still play golf?
No, I stopped playing in 2003. I wasn't playing good, so I said, that's it, I quit. So I stopped playing.
So you joined the Army when there was
During the Korean conflict.
Korean.
Yeah.
So what was the time period like with the war?
Well, during the Korean conflict, I was in the Army, so I did what I was supposed to do. During World War II, which I find very interesting, I remember we collected cans and papers, and I don't remember what we did with them, but I remember collecting them, and they take them because they needed them for the war effort. The other thing that I remember at that time is there was a scarcity of butter during the war. So that's when margarine came about. So margarine would be in a block, like a pound of butter was a pound of margarine, same shape. But they gave you a little orange thing about that big, and you squeezed that on the margarine and you stirred it so that it became yellow, looked like butter. I remember doing that, and it was, that's, big. And the other thing is, during World War II, the kids where I grew up, we always had something to do. Always had something to do. Play baseball, play football, play soccer, play hockey, skate outdoors on Barney's Pond with a hockey stick in Forest Park, skate on Porter Lake with the girls, and that was great. We just had a great time. We had a great time,
Were you living on the farm during World War II?
No, we came back in the spring of 1942.
Okay.
And then my father went to Buffalo as the general manager of the Buffalo Bison's hockey team, and he had suspended his franchise from the American Hockey League. So I was here with my mother, and then going to school at Wilbraham, and then I'd go to visit my father in Buffalo during the vacation and that sort of thing. Take the train, was great.
And then he came back to
And
his
he came
franchise?
back, well, he came to, as I said, he came to New Haven, and then he came back to Springfield 1946. 1946, I got to back up. 1942, he put new pipes for the brine to go through. That's what cools the ice. It cools the floor, cools the ice. Put brine through these pipes. Well, in 1942, he had just finished, and the Army says, out,
Yeah.
out, we're taking over. So there was nothing in the pipes. Didn't even let him put some kind of preservative in the pipes. So he didn't. So that's 4 years, 1946. Some of those pipes had deteriorated in places, and they sprung a leak because we put stuff in there, put the brine in there, and you could see it seeping through the floor and all kinds of. I still got scars on my knuckles from chopping out the cement to fix the pipes. So that's when I started working in the Coliseum, 1946, and worked there until 72.
So that was like your job as a teenager, or did you have like any other jobs? That
No.
was just always your job.
No, I worked at the Coliseum during summers and during school vacation. I worked at the Coliseum doing something.
Okay.
Doing something.
Sorry, it's a lot of information. So, and then the Army comes in, and then you can't use it, so you went to New Haven. Your father went to New Haven?
Yes.
And then he goes to Buffalo? Or
No, he went to Buffalo first.
Okay.
Say again?
So when did he go to Buffalo? And then when did he go to New
1942
Haven?
to 45.
Okay.
3 seasons he was in Buffalo and won 2 Calder Cup championships out there. He was a general manager out there.
And then when did he go to New Haven?
45, 46 season. Then 46 up until 72 was back at the Coliseum.
Okay. Do you remember anything else about World War II?
Yeah, I had a paper route then, and it was an afternoon paper, Daily News. And when I started as a paper person, it was 2 cents for the paper. So that's 12 cents a week, 6 days, 12 cents. And people would give me 15. So I got 3 cents tip. Okay. Then the paper went to 3 cents. So that's 3 times 6 is 18 cents. They'd give me 20, so I only got 2 cent tip. But it was fine. I also had a Sunday paper route, which was a little bit bigger than my daily paper route, and that was fine. I had a great time. Had a great time in those days.
What was life like on the farm?
That was very interesting. I started driving the tractor when I was 7, plowing the fields and doing whatever needed to be done with the tractor. I carried a .22 rifle with me because we had gophers, which is they call them prairie dogs now. Very bad for the crops of wheat, oats, and barley that we grew. So I'd have to shoot them. Well, they're destroying my father's business. I'm not taking care of that. There's a lot of them. So anyway, I one of my jobs on the farm, beside driving the tractor, was milking the cows. I milked the cows, by hand. And then the cat would be sitting over there, and I'd give the cat a little milk, like that. But that was what I was growing up. I remember after the noon meal one time, I said, I'm going for a ride. So I went to the barn, put put the saddle on my horse, Penny. And so I took her out, got on, went for a ride out, came back, and as I come back to the barn, I go like this to swing my leg over the horse. The saddle goes like this. I fell right down. My left side fell in a cow pie. They're about this big, about that big. Fell right in a cow pie. And so I put the horse back in the barn and went back, and I said to my mother, I said, I fell in a cow pie. My father says, what happened? So I told him. He says, when you put the saddle on, you got to stick your knee in her belly so she breathes in, so you can make it tighter. It was not a buckle. It was a 4-in-hand knot, just like this one. So, but it was great growing up on the farm. I had an absolute ball doing all kinds. We built a barn. My father built a barn. I put nails in the roof. It was just, I did everything. It was just super.
Did you clean the horses a lot? I worked at a farm, not farm, but like a equestrian center over the summer, so like to clean them a lot. Did you have to do like the brushing?
No, we didn't do that.
No?
No. I used to have to clean the stalls, take care of the manure. Oh yeah, you put it on a stone boat, hook the stone boat up to the horse, and then take it out and shovel it off into a big manure pile. Now what did we do with the manure? You put it in a manure spreader, and you spread it on the fields, because that helped things grow. That was like what do they call it now? The fertilizer. It was like fertilizer.
Yeah.
That's what that was. And then we'd plow it in, and it was good.
Do you remember any of your friends?
Yes, I remember a guy named Reggie Potter, who was a year older than me, and his sister was Elizabeth. Oh, I thought she was nice back then. And they would go to school in a horse and buggy. That's how they got to school. So I don't remember the other kids. Those are the only two.
How did you meet your wife?
Well, very interesting story. I was involved in the promotion of Ice Capades and running the building. And when Ice Capades came in, I had certain duties. And I was going out with a girl, and when they came to town, I said to her, do you get something to eat? We'll get something to eat after the show. Yep. I said, okay, I'll meet you backstage. So I did my thing. She got out of her costume and took the makeup off and all that kind of stuff. So I went to, and she says, my roommate's sinuses are clogged. I said, I'll take care of that. Get in the car. So we go around to the refrigeration room, which was an ammonia system. Now, there wasn't a lot of ammonia in there, but there was ammonia in there. So I got a chair. My wife went in the ammonia room. I put her in there, and Marjane and I went out and talked for a while, half an hour. This lady comes out and says, I can breathe. I said, I knew that. So the next year, the show comes to town. Now, the roommate, the one I put in the room, is the only one I know in the show. So I said to her, I said, "Where's Mara Jane?" She said, "She quit the show in California, married a California state trooper." You want to get something to eat? And we only been married 59 years, almost 60 years this year. This year, when we finish this year, it'll be 60 years we've been married.
What did she do in the show?
She was in the line girl. In other words, she was in the chorus type thing. She was not a principal, but nice. Very nice. Maybe they'll show you a picture of her on the, when we get there, when the boys get there. Anyway, that's how we met. Got 4 kids, girl, 2 boys and a girl, 9 grandchildren, 4 boys, 5 boys, 3 girls, 4 girls, that's 9, 5, 4 is 9, yeah, 9. Yeah.
What are your children like?
Well, Eddie and Bobby, of course, played hockey. And Bob stopped, 3 or 4 years ago because he had a heart problem. And Eddie's still playing. He plays 2-3 nights a week. And he's good. And he was the assistant hockey coach at Springfield College. Bob has his own business. He's in the remodeling business. Kathy owns the concessions at the Coliseum and the Mallory Arena for the Eastern States Exposition. She and her husband and her daughter, which makes 4 generations in that business, which is great. So that's how we met.
What is your wife like?
She's
Personality.
absolutely great. Beautiful girl. Took care of my kids. We had 4 kids in 5 years. I was on a first name basis. We were on a first name basis with the diaper company guy for like 6 years, 7 years. But anyway, no, my wife is absolutely great. Great person. Has done great for me. Done great for me. She's let me do the things that I want to do, be involved in the different organizations that I've been involved in, and has supported me and just great. Raised the kids because I was working, a lot. So, but she's a great person.
Besides your immediate family, do you remember any relatives that you really enjoyed being around?
My grandfather, my mother's father, my grandfather, my grandmother, my uncle, my mother's brother and my mother's sister. They were all a lot older than me, of course. They were, one was older than my mother, one was a couple of years younger. So I always enjoyed them. And on my father's side, my first cousin, Jack Butterfield, came to work for us. Of course, I knew him since I was, like this. And his family were all just great people, great people.
Besides Scotland, where were your relatives from?
My mother was born in Scotland. And my grandfather and my grandmother were born in Scotland. My Uncle Ed was born in Scotland. My Aunt Florence was born in Canada. On my father's side, I am 5th generation North American. So they go back a ways to, and where they came from, I think it's Ireland, Northern Ireland, but I wouldn't bet breakfast on that one.
So you're like totally American, North American.
I'm American. I'm North American for sure. I belong 1942, my father and my mother became American citizens because they were Canadian. So I became an American citizen at 12. And then when I became 18, I had to make a decision whether I was going to be Canadian or American citizen. And I chose American because I figured I'm living here, I'm going to work here, so I'm going to be a U.S. citizen. So I am and still am.
What were some organizations you were involved in?
Well, this year I'm a 54-year Mason. I'm a 53-year Shriner. I was potentate, which is president of the Melha Shriners here in Springfield in 1995. I belong to 4 other shrine groups that are part of Melha. I belong to them. I've been head of 3 of the 4. I also was involved with the West Springfield Boys and Girls Club. I was a member of their board of trustees for 20 years. I was a member of Kiwanis. I was vice president of Kiwanis International for 2 years. I was head of the Kiwanis Club. Let me see.
What did you do at Kiwanis?
I was ended up being president and lieutenant governor twice. So Kiwanis is a service club. It's like Rotary.
Yeah.
It's a service club, service to the community, and it was great. Met a lot of great people, and I knew a lot of people in Rotary too because we would cross paths here and there. Let me see. There was something else. Oh, I am a member of the Springfield Hockey Heritage Society. Okay, which started in 2009, and because it's hockey and I was involved in hockey, I said to the 2 guys that started it, I said, I'd like to be involved. They said, come on in. So I've been involved with them. And they have named an award after me. I don't know why, but they have. So it's crazy. And then I'm involved with the Wilbraham Munson Academy. I'm involved with AIC, where I graduated. I'm a charter member of the AIC Alumni Veterans Committee. I've been a member of the AIC Alumni Varsity Club. I was president twice for 3 years, 2 times 3 years. And I was treasurer for 3 years, and I'm still on the board there. So,
What did you do at the Heritage Society?
well, I ran a couple of events for them, and now that I'm getting older, I go to the meetings and make sure everything's going in the right direction and help them make decisions and do the right thing and just help. You know, try to get, if you want to join the Springfield Hockey Heritage Society, I have a card here in my pocket. I'll be very happy to give it to you. I carry them with me. So that's, you know, membership. And then I try to get some of the hockey players that I'm acquainted with to come to our events. We have 3 big events in the year. One is at we go to the Mass Mutual Center, see a hockey game and have some food and camaraderie. We have another one in March. No, we have something in March. It's small, but we have something in March. it has to do with hockey. You know, we go to the hockey, we go to the Mass Mutual Center. And in August, is that my phone? No. In August, we have what we call Hockey Day in Springfield. So we have, last year we had like 25 players came, and we had over 200 people there. We have lunch, and we mingle, mix, and the players talk a little bit. So it's great for hockey in Springfield.
At the Boys and Girls Club, did you interact with hockey players?
No. That was just boys and girls from West Springfield that belonged to the West Springfield Boys and Girls Club. So I interacted with them as a member of the Board of Trustees, but we met once a month, and again, I didn't keep my mouth shut.
When did your father's business close?
Okay, 1972, we had a lease with the Exposition that usually was 5 years. Well, in 1972, the lease was up, and my father asked to renew the lease, and the general manager of the Exposition said, nope, not going to do it. So my father said, okay. Well, 1972, the Civic Center was opening in Springfield. So we put in a bid. We didn't put in a bid. We made a deal at the Civic Center to bring the hockey team over there. So can I back up a little bit? 1967, the National Hockey League doubled from 6 to 12 teams. Sorry about that. And so my father sold the players to the Los Angeles Kings, who were coming into the National Hockey League in 1967, 68. And he leased the the American League franchise to the Kings. So they would have a place to place their players coming up, you know, their younger players and that sort of thing. So we ran the building, and they put on the hockey team. So we had to find a place for them to play. So we made a deal with the Civic Center. So we were there, and in 75, Cook said, the owner said, I'm going to fold the team. And my father says, we have an agreement. He says, so sue me. So Cook found out from the general manager, his general manager, who was good friends with my father, said, you know, we got to pay the players, coach, and trainer the rest of the season. If they go home and sit down, we still got to pay them. Let's make a deal with Shore whereby he'll run everything else, and we'll pay the players. So that's what happened. In January, changed the name back to the Indians. Everybody was happy. I spent days and days and days promoting to get people into the building. Changed the uniforms back from gold, purple and gold, royal colors, Kings, to Springfield Indians. And George McGuire made 3 player changes. 3. We end up just getting in the playoffs, and we won the Calder Cup that year, 74-75. So that's how that went about. Now, what did you ask me before that?
How did the organization close?
Say again?
Is your organization still going on? Is it still a thing? The Indians?
The Indians. The Indians, we sold the Indians in 1976. My father sold the Indians. They operated in 3 years back at the Coliseum, and then they went back to the Civic Center again and operated there until 1976, when the guy that owned them, he sold the team to Worcester. So that's when Bruce Landon came. Bruce Landon had been involved with the team since 1972. No, 67. So he and Wayne LaChance got a brand new franchise from the American League, and they called it the Springfield Falcons. So that's how that came about.
And didn't that team just get sold too, or they moved?
No, what happened was the Springfield Falcons, the guy that owned them, Charlie Pompey, he sold the franchise to Phoenix of the National Hockey League, and they put their team in Phoenix, in Tucson. So local ownership people found out that Portland wasn't happy, so they bought the Portland franchise and brought it here, and now they call it the Thunderbirds.
Do you go to the games often here?
I go to the games. Often, I don't know. I go when I can go, which isn't too much. But I go when I can go. My kids like to go.
When the Coliseum originally closed, you were the last person to skate with your wife?
Yes. They closed in March of 1991. And I said to my wife, I said, we got to be last to skate on this ice. So we went down and had a nice skate for about 20 minutes, and it was absolutely great, just the two of us on the ice. And it was super. It was a great feeling, great feeling.
Were you sad though?
I was sad that they were taking the ice out. But, you know, there's something else we got to talk about. When we went to my father took the team and the franchise and the team and went to the Mass Mutual Center, now Mass Mutual Center. He said to the exposition, because we owned the refrigeration equipment, the boards, the glass, the rinkside seats, and a lot of other equipment. So my father said, because we didn't need it going to the Civic Center, they got all new stuff down there. So I said, my father said, I'll sell you everything for $65,000. They said, nope. They didn't know my father. We took everything. Everything that wasn't nailed down, we took. Absolutely. We took it all, storage. And so they had to put a refrigeration system in there, cost them $120,000 just for the refrigeration system. Then they got to put the boards and the glass and rinkside seats in there. So that's how that worked out.
What has hockey meant to you throughout the years?
It's my livelihood. I made a living, not playing, but being involved in hockey. As a rink rat, as a player, not a player, as a coach, as a general manager. It's been my life. Hockey's been my life for all that thing.
What team did you coach?
Springfield Indians.
Oh, so were you the head coach or a co-coach?
Well, what happened was the guy that was the coach in 1966-67 season, he quit. So after he quit, which was December, a couple of days later, I said to to my father, I said, who's going to coach? He says, you are. Okay. So I coached the rest of the season, 66, 67 season.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes, very much so. Now, there's something you haven't asked me. What other businesses have I been involved in? Shall I tell you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to college, 1954. Sports Service was operating the concessions at the Coliseum. And the guy that was the manager of the concessions, Jack Tarbox, he said to me, he says, I need somebody to run the commissary. That's check the vendors in and out. He said, you want to do that? So I asked my father. My father said yes. So that's what I did during the pro games. That was my start. 1950, that was 54. 1958, we started our own concession company. There was my father, my stepmother, my cousin Jack, and I were the owners. So, been in the concession business since then. I mean, I retired in '96 and gave the business I sold the business for next to nothing to my daughter, my oldest daughter, my son-in-law, she'd been working in the business since she was 10. So she knew about it. So, and now her daughter's working in the business, so that's the fourth generation. So I did that. And that was good. My kids, all my kids worked in the concession business at one time or another. You want to ask me what else I did?
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry.
I operated a company that did what they call flat shows, home shows, sports shows, boat shows, flower shows. I owned a company that did that in New England. I was involved with a construction company for a while. I owned an apartment building, 24 units. And when I sold that, that paid for my daughter's college. So that was a good thing. That's enough.
That's it? That's
No,
all
no.
the businesses?
That's all the businesses.
You've been involved in a lot. I thought when you said all the organizations, it was like done with the organizations. But you weren't. You had a
No.
lot more to tell.
No.
Who is the most important person in your life?
Originally or now? My father and my mother. Absolutely. My father and my mother. Now, my wife. I mean, like I said, the end of this year we'll be married 60 years. So she's a very important person to me. It's not to say that I don't love my kids and my grandchildren, but you asked me that question, I have to give you that answer.
What was the happiest moment of your life?
When I married my wife. That's easy, piece of cake.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
And the second was when my oldest daughter was born. Her name is Catherine. Why? My grandmother on my father's side was Catherine. My mother was Catherine. My mother-in-law is Catherine. What are we going to name our first daughter? Catherine, no question. Piece of cake.
Did you call her?
Kathy.
Okay. What are some important lessons you've learned throughout your life?
Well, I think you got to be a good person. You got to be honest. And you got to give back. You got to do the best you can with whatever you do. Whatever you do, you got to do the best you can. And the other thing is, I think part of my success and the way people view me is that I've been involved in a lot of things, given back to the community with all the with all the organizations I belonged to and worked for. I think you got to give back. And I mean, I meet people all the time that are, some are from all these different organizations I have belonged to and worked for.
What are you proudest in your life? Is that what you're proud of?
I'm proud of my 4 kids. Beyond that, I'm proud that my family is still involved in the concession business. I think that says something about them and me. And I think that just doing the right thing, you know, I mean, I'm proud that I have been able to do the things I've been able to do, and that with the support of my wife, because if she wasn't behind me, you know, forget it. You know, you're not going to do those things. Like her grandfather was a Shriner. Her father was a Shriner. She was a Rainbow Girl. So, you know, when I joined the Masons in the Shrine, that was okay with her. You know, that was a good thing. One of the things that, 2 of the things that I'm very, very proud of that have happened to me in my lifetime, beside my family, is that I was elected to the AIC Sports Hall of Fame, which is great. And the biggest thing is I was elected to the Springfield Hockey Hall of Fame twice. Which as far as I'm concerned, it's a big deal, because my father's only in 7 halls of fame. I'm happy I'm in 2. But with the Springfield Hockey Hall of Fame, I was elected in the early 2000s as a builder, and then about 4 or 5 years later, I was elected as a rink rat. And there's only one other person that has the same honor that I have, and that's Sam Pompey, was a reporter for this and an editor for the Springfield Daily News. He was elected as a builder, and then when the rink rats came in, because he was a rink rat way back, he came in as a rink rat. So I'm real proud of that, being elected to that.
Is there anything you would like to talk to that we didn't get to? Or talk about?
I think you've done a great job. I think you've done a great job, and I know you're going to do better, which means you're going to do great if you choose this business.
Thank you, Ted Shore, for coming out and telling us about your life story and leaving behind your legacy in everything you've done for Westside. I'm Gabrielle Daly, and see you next time on Westside Legacy Stories.